Alright, hello and welcome back to my driveway here. I've gotten all my parts and everything that I needed to get that box taken care of, but if you can't already tell, I don't sound exactly all that right. Pretty much got sick for a week right after I fixed an RV door for my mom when she passed through, so didn't have any videos recently. But I decided I needed to get something done out here. Spent enough time sitting in the house doing nothing but sitting on the couch playing video games and that type of stuff. So I just wanted to talk about buying and selling used cars. So, as you can tell, 90% of the stuff that I have are all used cars. Probably even 98%. Closest thing I got to new was at Tiburon that I bought with 2,700 miles on the clock, but even that was used. So, it's something everyone's going to probably do at least some point in their life. Buying and selling a car. And there is some ins and outs and issues that you can run into. So I guess the first few things that you have to deal with is, are you buying a good car? Now, you should do a bunch of research on the potential vehicles that you're looking at. So I just sold a 2003 Trailblazer with 202,000 miles on it and a rebuilt transmission. Now that's not too terrible. I sold that for about $2,000, which is on the low side of what something like that should go for, but not too far low that I really cared that much. So listed it for 27, sold it for 2, close enough. But when you're looking at vehicles like that, you need to do some research to see if, for starters, if that type of vehicle is even capable of surpassing 200,000 miles, which that one I have seen plenty of specimens online with 300,000 on them, so I felt it was safe to sell that one off. It's like some of these other vehicles that I've bought before, I've kept and essentially parted out myself just because I didn't feel it was safe for somebody else to take it and crash it. So, once you do your research and you figure out that whatever listing you're looking at is a decent vehicle and a decent price for that, you need to go out and test drive. Now, the big things you need to do on your test drive is to double check and make sure everything's working the way you expect it to work. Of course, as vehicles are more expensive, you should expect more out of them. A $2,000 vehicle, you should probably expect a crack in the windshield, a couple spots of rust, some windows not working, you know, that type of stuff. Simple little wear and tear, because these days, if a vehicle starts and runs and it will actually go down the road and shift through gears, you're looking at something that's at least $1,000. Back in the day, you used to be able to pick up $100, $200 cars that worked perfectly fine, but that is no longer a thing after the whole cash for clunkers stuff kind of deleted the entire world of used cars. But anyways, once you get out on a test drive, make sure everything shifts through all the gears, runs properly. Make sure you drive it long enough to run it up to temperature to make sure that it doesn't overheat or any of that type of stuff. If you do a lot of highway driving, make sure you rip it up and down the highway for a while just to make sure that it rides smooth, everything works the way you expect it, and then when you come back, you can go through the whole concept of making an offer and so on and so forth. So, after you've already taken it for a test drive, inspected it, and if you're someone that doesn't really know too much about vehicles, make sure to have it inspected by a friend that knows something about it, or maybe even a mechanic down the road. They'll usually check a vehicle out for like $50. Granted, it is a little on the spendy side to spend $50 to give it a full inspection, but he'll give you a yay or nay on whether it's worthwhile or not, and that just might save you some money in the long run. Let's just say you're looking at two different vehicles. One is, let's just randomly say, one's $4,500 and it's at a dealership. And there's another one, identical, same miles, same everything, and it's for sale locally from a person for $3,000. That's typical what you're going to see. Dealerships are going to charge additional dollars because they have the overhead, they have to advertise, and the big part is after the sale. So in our hypothetical situation, let's have two people. One person will buy the $3,000 vehicle and the other one will buy the $4,500 vehicle. They both make their offers, they get accepted, and they roll off the shop. They got their sales slip and everything. Now let's fast forward about a week. They've both been driving around, and let's say they both have a huge issue. Say the transmission just stops shifting. Here's where you're going to run into some issues. With vehicles, there is no guarantee that the way you buy it is the way it's going to stay forever. And in fact, you should actually expect things to go wrong. Hopefully, you'll get some usage out of it, and on the other side, you may not get much time at all. So, personally, I've had the same issue. I bought the Raider, and then the head gasket blew about a month later after I got it, which cracked the head, and I pretty much just junked the engine and went to how that was built. And then the big white Dorito truck out here, I bought that, and there was a couple issues with it, but nothing that I was too worried about until halfway home. Found out that the fuel pump was failing, the radiator has a hole in it, and the drive shaft was pretty much rocking and banging and smashing into everything. So there's a couple of examples right there of things that went wrong once he left. So with these two hypothetical ones, this one bought it for $3,000 from a sell it owner, and this one bought it for $4,500 at a dealership. They both start having transmission issues and things just not quite working right. Here's where you paid that difference. If this guy goes back and talks to the owner that sold it to him and said, hey, this vehicle you sold me a week ago, it stopped working. What is that seller going to say? They're going to say, well, it worked when I sold it to you, and that's what I sold it to you as. It doesn't really matter if you get a week, an hour, 3 years. Whatever you buy in that condition is what you're paying. You run the risk of it blowing up 50 miles down the road. That's why you need to do your research and test drive. Now, this person that goes and talks to this owner here and says, I demand you help me, you sold me this POS vehicle. And the owner is just going to look at you and say, well, that's nice, but once you rolled it off of my driveway here, I have no responsibility for it. It's your problem. And any potential buyers need to realize that the whole used car as is, that's the way it is. It's like there's no room for buyer's remorse, no room for damage done to vehicle, because from the owner's perspective, we wouldn't know if you loaded a 12,000 pound trailer right behind the vehicle and hammered it down the interstate trying to do 100 all the way to California and back. You really have no clue, so that's why there is the whole as is, no warranty expressed or implied, that whole stuff there. So that person that got that good deal, saved $1,500, now has to go and get some repairs done. Now this other person who paid $4,500 had all the transmission issues. They can go back to the dealership and say, hey, you sold me this piece of junk. What are you going to do about it? And more often than not, if you're at a big dealership, they will offer to help you out, maybe cut you a deal, parts only cost on repairs. Sometimes they'll waive the actual labor fee, which is easy for them to do because they have an entire garage team that's on staff all the time. So what's it to them? And another thing that they're capable of doing is, if that vehicle really was kind of a piece of junk, they could potentially get you into another vehicle, and maybe you have to pay an extra $500 to get you into something else. Either way, that's probably more beneficial to you. So that's what you're going to have to kind of think about. Are you willing to take the risk dealing with a normal for sale by owner type of setup? You take that risk for that savings, and that's where you end up. Or you can pay that extra to a dealership, make them more money, and have that hope in the back of your mind that they might help you. There's no guarantee that dealerships will help you. A lot of times the kind of smaller ones will tell you go pound sand. I mean, it's not guaranteed, but if you have a big local company that rely on word of mouth responses, it's probably more valuable for them to eat $500 and have another happy customer than to make a big fuss about it and possibly cost dozens of future sales. So, where exactly does that put me in this whole situation? Essentially, I sold my Trailblazer. It was a straight six, standard, normal automatic transmission, probably the 4L60E, just a standard Chevy setup. Had a broken windshield, kind of in the passenger side, so you didn't really notice it. I did a bunch of repairs to it. I had almost new tires, new shocks. It's been aligned. Everything was running perfectly. I ran it for an entire year, no issues whatsoever. Not a doubt in my mind that it would go anywhere. About 5 days after the people took it home, I get texts and phone calls saying, hey, we need to talk. You sold me this piece of junk. Now, it's like I don't want to be that kind of dipweed that just tells them to shove off, but it's like I have to try to illustrate to them in a friendly manner that it's kind of not my problem. I know it's kind of a issue and I'm upset when it happens to me, but being the buyer before that sale, you have all the power in the world. You can choose, essentially, you can choose your price. You can say yes or no. You can make deals. The buyer holds all the cards. So once you sign that paperwork and you take the title and you leave, all the power now rests in the seller. And that's a position you don't necessarily want to be in, but it's kind of in this nature of vehicles and humans. You have to adopt this kind of don't care attitude, because if I cared a lot and volunteered to do stuff for them, they would take me for all I'm worth. And as you can tell around here, I'm not worth all that much. I'm not sitting on $500,000 just burning a hole in my pocket. So I don't have the ability to help as much as other people could. So it's like I tried to illustrate to them that everything worked flawless. I didn't misrepresent the vehicle, because that's the first thing everyone tries to say is, you hid all these problems from me. What are you going to do about it? And personally, I went with the whole thing of it worked flawlessly for me, so I don't see how I misrepresented anything. Since I felt I didn't misrepresent anything, I don't see a reason why I should make a deal with them. Granted, they didn't actually make a demand or a request or anything. I just kind of told them my position, because for the most part, I can't control what you do with the vehicle once you leave. You could drive out the road down to the local gas station. You could grab the diesel pump and pump it into the vehicle. That's not my fault, so I wouldn't be covering that. You could take it to the interstate, just mash the pedal to the floor, attempt to do 95 up and down the road, and really, again, that's not my problem. So it's like, as a seller, you kind of walk that weird line. Now, the issue that I did that was probably not the best choice from my side is they told me that they only had a credit debit card to pay for it. So I've run businesses on the side before, running credit cards and that type of stuff. So I had the software to do that for them. So I figured, hey, why not? So the issue that I have with that is I spent a large amount of money because I have to pay a percentage for the processing fees. So that cost me almost like $70 just to process that. Now, what I'm guessing I'm going to get in the next couple days is I'm going to probably get a chargeback request. So they're probably going to be really unhappy, call up their bank and say, hey, this person sold me goods that weren't as described. I'd like my money back. And then they're going to send that request to my processor, and then they're going to talk to me, and we're going to do this whole paperwork switch. And it's not really going to go anywhere. I've seen how that goes through, and more often than not, banks and those type of things don't back up buyer's remorse and that type of things. They tend to err on the side of the businesses because they're a business themselves, and consumers kind of almost mean nothing to them. But this is where it's gonna cause me quite a few headaches and probably make it not really worth that much to sell that vehicle. So it's like when you start dealing with all that extra work behind the scenes, that's what that dealership is tacking on that extra $1,500 is for all this future problems that could arise. They kind of play the numbers game, and every 5 cars they might have an issue with. So the 4 previous ones, they made the profit that they're going to eat on the last one. So either way, that's kind of how that rolls out. So back to my whole situation. I probably would have been further along to part out the vehicle. Like maybe pull the body off, sell off all the body pieces, $20 a seat, just kind of wholesale it out, make $500-600 out of it, and then have like a chassis and build into like a all-wheel drive dune buggy or something. That's kind of what I do with my vehicles. It's been a long time, but I got the Mini Woody over there on that side that was an S10. So I tend to not like to sell my vehicles because they're not necessarily for everyone once I modify them, mess around with them, but whatever. That vehicle was essentially all 100% stock. I traded my mom for it for my boat. It's like I'm not by a lake anymore to be able to take a boat around, so I kind of swapped that with her. After this whole shenanigans here, I probably got the bad end of that deal. So I kind of trade a $2,500 to $3,000 asset, and I'm going to be lucky if I get away with $1,500 worth of money out of the whole thing. So I would have been better off keeping the boat and selling that for $3,000. Whatever. That was another thing that I bought that was kind of jacked up. It's like I bought that boat, everything was great. Little did they tell me that they rammed the side of the boat into like a log that was submerged. So there's a whole like big section in the side of the boat that was all just weakened and destroyed, delaminated fiberglass. So I had to rebuild that section of boat. It's kind of to the point that it could take an RPG now, but might be a little heavy on that side, but it holds water. So it's like these mechanical things, it's really just a gamble. So there's nothing really guaranteed. If you want something guaranteed, like you know you're going to put on 20,000 miles every single year, maybe you should think about buying brand new, doing a lease, something where there's a outside entity that's going to guarantee that vehicle's usage. It's like personal users and that type of stuff, we're not going to guarantee that that vehicle lasts. We just need it, as much as I don't like saying it, we just need it to last out of our driveway. So it's like, I don't know, it's really hard to say. That vehicle I sold was good as far as I could tell. So I sold it under good faith. They accepted that good faith even though there were some issues with it, but it's what would that be? It's a 15-year-old car. What do you expect? So anyways, I know this is probably long-winded. My voice is getting really hoarse, so I'm probably going to be done for today. But that's just things to keep in mind when you shop for a used car. Do you want to roll the dice with a home user seller, try to get that good bargain, or are you going to go to a dealership, pay that 20% more, and have the opportunity to have someone to talk to if you have issues. Anyways, that's my take on it. Everyone has their own theories, but I just know that if you buy a vehicle from some poor sap in a house out of someone's driveway, do them the favor of not calling them up and complaining at every last single little thing that goes wrong. Because honestly, it's not our fault if you had some sort of concerns about its livelihood and that type of stuff when you were looking at it. Either don't buy it or have a mechanic check it out. Because once you're out that driveway, I'm essentially not in control of what you do. So I'm not going to back everything up. Anyways, I guess that's it for today. I need to go back inside and lay down a while. This is kind of hot out here and I'm not feeling all that well. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time when we actually get back to working on this thing. And then I'm going to have to clean up this garage because I'm running out of space and I'm going to need to pull the engine to do all that type of stuff, and I need more space. So I got probably a good week's worth of cleaning to do in here to make it somewhat presentable for my life. Anyways, I guess I will see you all later.